Do you have bugs in your beans? Well, some people do, some people don't. Stephanie Porter is the outreach agronomist for Illinois Soybean Association. And we found some bean leaf beetles in here. Matter of fact, there's quite a bit of damage in these fields. You haven't sprayed or anything, but nevertheless, for people who haven't done something like that, there may be a problem. What have you found everywhere? Give us an assessment of bugs
Yeah.
in the beans this year.
Yeah, so just this week we started to get a lot of reports of a lot of late season pests. A lot of farmers, depending on if they had some Japanese beetles, for example, early on, might have thrown in an insecticide at R3 with their fungicide. And unfortunately, when we get to this part of the season, that insecticide is no longer available. And so we've had a lot of people scouting across the state, and we have been getting some reports of bean leaf beetle feeding pretty heavy in some areas. I've also heard of there's lots of stink bugs out. And then down south, we're getting, just random different insects, whether it be on alfalfa, and then, for example, green clover worm outbreaks down south. So a lot's going on in soybeans, so make sure you get out there and look.
If they see leaves being damaged,
Mm-hmm.
that's not as serious as pods being damaged, is it?
That's right. So it really does depend on the growth stage. And in this area, so we're in Decatur now, and not too far away from our home farm, we did have some Japanese beetle feeding earlier that could be still evident out in the field. So I think the key is to really go out in the field, not just the edge, and look at different points and make sure that the insects are actually there and active as well, because we talk about different types of defoliation going on, and we've got some pretty heavy defoliation on, but I think the key is we're in full seed right now, which is R6, and we're wanting to protect that valuable seed, our yield, not just yield, but also make sure we don't get blemishes, because bean leaf beetle also feeds on that pod and can cause issues to the seed and maybe even possibly diseases to come in.
And that's the critical part. If you find bean leaf beetles working on pods, what do you need? What do you do?
So normally in vegetative stages, which is kind of what you've just alluded to, we can take a lot of feeding on beans. When we start getting more than 15% defoliation throughout the canopy with beans, and especially if they're feeding on the pods, I'd become very concerned. And so in some areas, they are doing some sweeps with sweep nets, and they're getting really, really high populations of bean leaf beetle. So that's something to look out for, and they are applying some insecticides just to protect those pods.
Some advice from Stephanie Porter, outreach agronomist from the Illinois Soybean Association. I'm Stu Ellis.